Hello everyone, I'm going to talk about elasticities of demand today. There are three types of elasticities. These are the on price elasticity of demand, cross price elasticity of demand, and the last one, the income elasticity of demand. If we look at the general causes of relatively low incomes in agriculture, there are two important factors we need to highlight. Firstly, price elasticity of demand for many basic agriculture products is relatively low. When elasticity is less than unity, increased supplies of an agriculture product cause a more than proportionate fall in prices, other factors remaining unchanged, so that the gross receipts of farmers from sales of product are reduced. Secondly, income elasticity of demand for most agricultural products is relatively low and tends to diminish with increase in incomes. These two causes operating on the sides of demand result from physiological and psychological factors affecting the desire for food and from the predominantly food nature of agricultural products. If we turn to type of elasticities of demand, we can start with the own price elasticities of demand. Firstly, the own price elasticity of demand measures the sensitivity of demand of a good Q to changes in its price P, ceteris paribus. Specifically, it is defined as epsilon E proportionate change in the quantity demanded is divided by proportionate change in the price of product E. Now I want to show the price elasticities of demand in a figure. As you see, the panels A, B, and C in the figure. These graphs illustrate perfectly inelastic, unitary elastic, and perfectly elastic demand source respectively. It should be stressed, however, that the own price elasticity of demand has two components: the reciprocal of the slope and a specific location or point of evaluation on the curve. Pi is divided by Qi for most demand curves. Therefore, the value of elasticity will depend on which point on the curve is being considered. This is best illustrated by reference to a linear demand curve. The curve has the same slope at each point. For example, delta Q is divided by delta P is a constant. In the range A to B, quantity is relatively small and price is relatively high. On the other hand, between P, B and C, quantity is relatively large and price is relatively low. The effect of a rise in the price of the basic foodstuff is not necessarily to cut down on their consumption. Savings may well be made on either less essential goods. The income effect can thus work in a different direction to the substitution effect. It could theoretically even outweigh it. For example, Alfred Marshall calls the Giffen paradox that an increase in bread price leads to an increase in the bread consumption among poorer people. Expenditure on bread is such a large proportion of their total expenditure that when its price rises, they are forced to cut down their already low consumption of meat and other expensive foodstuff and replace it with more bread. In 1857, Ernest Engel propounded his famous law of consumption. The poorer a family is, the greater the proportion of total expenditures which it must use to procure food. Economists are vitally concerned with what happens to a family's food consumption pattern when the family income changes. The change that occurs in consumption of an item when income increases is measured by what is called income elasticity. For example, if consumption of food increases 1% as a result of a 1% increase in income, the income elasticity of food would be plus 1.00. If a 1% change in price results in a 1% change in the quantity taken, the elasticity of demand is unity. If a change in price of 1% results in a 2% change in quantity, the elasticity is greater than unity, and that is elastic demand. If the 1% change in price is accompanied by only a half of 1% change in the quantity taken, the elasticity is less than unity, and that is inelastic demand. I would like to move to the second one, cross price elasticity of demand. A cross price elasticity of demand is a measure how the quantity purchase of one commodity QI responds to changes in the price of another commodity PI, ceteris paribus. More precisely, epsilon E proportionate change in the quantity demanded of good I is divided by proportionate change in the price of good J. The sign of cross elasticity is negative if goods I and J are complements, and positive if I and J are substitutes. For example, cross elasticity of beef with respect to price of mutton would be positive, as beef and mutton are substitutes. A rise in the price of mutton is likely to cause some switching from mutton to beef. The third one, the income elasticity of demand. A measure of responsiveness of demand to a change in per capita income, ceteris paribus, is defined as proportionate change in quantity demanded is divided by proportionate change in income. Actually, the type of product involved has a significant impact in income and price elasticities. Income elasticities tend to be lowest for cereals, higher for oils and fats and fruits and vegetables, and the highest for meat and dairy products. Income elasticities for food increase as income declines in the course of economic growth, and the proportion of total expenditure on food will increase. Hence, the focus of economic activity will not shift away from agricultural sector. Income elasticity of food varies with level of family income, type of product, whether measured at far more at retail level, or the effect of services added to product in marketing channel, and the fourth one, family residence. There are Three classes of forces operate to cause the demand curve to change its position in the short run. These forces or determinants of demand may be listed like this. Firstly, changes in consumer tastes and preferences, and the second one, changes in consumer incomes, and the third one, changes in the prices of competing commodities. And in the long run, the size and composition of the population may be added as an important determinant. Response in quantities taken is relatively greater than changes in price. The demand is said to be elastic. In general, luxuries and semi-luxuries have the most elastic demand. The reasons for are obvious. It is very difficult for us to get along without or substitute something for any commodity that is a necessity. But we can and do vary our consumption of luxuries considerably in response to price changes. Commodities, the consumption of which is not relatively sensitive to changes in price, are said to have inelastic demand. The quantity of this product consumed will not change greatly as a result of price being raised or lowered. The classic example of a commodity with inelastic demand is salt. If the price of salt were doubled or trebled, people would still eat the same amount, and if the price were lowered to 1% a pound, consumption in the home would not be materially increased. However, even the demand for such an inelastic commodity as salt will vary to some extent with changes in price. For example, if salt went up in price very much, the farmers would be more careful not to waste it in feeding livestock. Differences in the elasticity of consumer demand among individual commodities and markets result partly from variations in the five factors determining demand, but are due principally to the way in which the three factors responsible for the law of demand operate. In other words, they reflect differences in the conditions which determine both the quantity taken at any price and change in quantity that results from a given change in that price. The degree of elasticity varies directly with the degree of differences in desires for the commodity among consumers and with the degree of differences in purchasing power among them. It varies inversely with the rate of diminishing utility for the commodity. For example, there is more variation among consumers in their desire for strawberries than in their desire for bread. Hence, the demand for the former is more elastic than for the latter. In two markets of equal size having respectively a wide and narrow spread in money incomes of consumers, the elasticity of demand for strawberry would be greatest in the former. The fact that the law of diminishing utility operates more strongly in the case of salt than for the most commodities is largely responsible for inelastic demand. It should be stressed that the own price elasticity of demand has two components: the reciprocal of the slope and a specific location or point of evaluation on the curve. For most demand curves, the value of the elasticity will depend on which point on the curve is being considered. I would like to finish my speech with an example illustrated by Alfred Marshall in his economics books. And Marshall indicated that a person of high musical sensibility in a large town will avoid bad concerts, though he might go to them gladly if he lived in a small town where no good concerts are heard. Because there are not enough persons willing to pay the high price required to cover their expenses. The effective demand for first-rate music is elastic only in large towns. For second-rate music, it is elastic both in large and small towns.